Okay. Okay, so good afternoon. We will be dealing with the epidemiologic study designs this afternoon. I don't know if you can hear me well. Malakas kasi yung ulan dito. Hindi ko alam kung naririnig nyo ko or puros background yung naririnig.
Rinig naman po ito.
Okay, sige. May I request, okay lang ba if we record the session? Okay lang?
Okay lang po.
Okay, salamat. Okay, so today we will be dealing with epidemiologic study design. We have descriptive and analytic study design. And later on, we'll also deal with the biases the concept of validity in epidemiologic studies. Okay, so this is the epidemiologic approach, no? So pag meron tayong mga natutunan tungkol sa mga bagay-bagay, we examine the existing facts, and out of these facts, we generate new hypotheses. Kasi pagka inaral natin, describe natin ang isang phenomenon, the end result of that is new hypothesis. Kaya yung mga descriptive studies natin, ito yung mga ginagawa niya, mag-generate ng bagong hypothesis. Now, this hypothesis is still a contention. Hindi pa natin alam kung ito ay totoo o hindi. Therefore, we test this hypothesis and we use analytic studies to test the hypothesis. Now, with that, we generate new facts kasi nga, nalaman na natin kung totoo o hindi yung bagong yung hypothesis na na-generate natin. And therefore, with these new facts, ito na naman, pwede na naman natin siyang i-examine. No? So, medyo yung epidemiological approach, paikot-ikot lang siya. We start with description, profiling, mga ganon, and we learn from that generation ng hypothesis, and then i-test natin yung hypothesis using analytic studies so that we can learn more and generate new knowledge. And pwede na naman natin i-test yun. So, ganyan lang ang epidemiologic approach. No? So, what is a hypothesis? We know that a hypothesis is a contention. Hindi pa siya totoo. Ibig sabihin, it is just an intelligent guess of the researcher. Kaya, kailangan matest natin ito. No? So, a testable statement of a putative relationship between exposure and outcome. Kasi ang epidemiology, we want to determine ano ba yung mga nagkakos ng isang outcome. And in epidemiology, pag sinabi natin outcome, we are actually referring to disease conditions, pwede rin siyang healthy state. Ano ang mga factors na nagkakos noon? Pwede itong mga exposure factors or risk factors. No? So, kailangan i-test natin whether these exposures are related to the outcome. Kasi pag nalaman natin itong mga exposures at itong sakit pala, yun yung produce niya, we can know how to prevent a condition. In the era of universal healthcare, very important na alam natin yung mga preventive measures para hindi na magkaroon ng sakit. Yun naman yung gusto natin sa mga sa disease condition. No? So, the hypothesis is a possible explanation about determinants of health and disease. So we have here a variable, independent variable. It could be the exposure variable or the factor, pwede siyang risk factor. And if you look at the arrow, it is pointing towards the outcome, the variable Y, which is the dependent variable or the outcome variable. In epidemiology, it refers to diseases. So kung nalaman natin itong variable, hindi alam na natin kung paano ma-prevent yung sakit na yun. Okay, so in epidemiology, there are different approaches. No? So meron tayong descriptive saka analytic epidemiology. Pag sinabi natin descriptive, we're just looking into the distribution of health-related states. We describe disease occurrence as to person, place, and time. Sino ba yung affected? Saan ba ito nangyayari? No? May seasonality ba siya? So, this is just a plain description of the occurrence of the disease among persons, place, and time. So, ang trabaho ng isang descriptive study is to generate hypothesis. Siya yung pinakasimpleng study design, pero maganda siya para makakuha tayo ng bagong hypothesis. The analytic study designs naman, they look into the determinants of health-related states. What is very different from, ano ba yung difference niya sa isang descriptive study? Pag sinabi natin analytic study, meron lagi siyang comparator group. No? Yung sa mga may sakit, walang sakit, may factor, walang factor. Laging merong dalawang grupo. No? And with that, we can look into the determinants of health-related states. So we can examine associations between these two variables. No? And the role of your analytic study is to test the hypothesis para magkaroon tayo na naman ng new facts. No? So that's the role of analytic study. Okay, so let's look into descriptive epidemiology. Bakit kaya tayo kailangan mag-aral ng mga descriptive epidemiology? Dahil kasi diseases do not occur as random. Hindi naman yan laging minsan iba-iba rin naman yung patterns ng disease, no? So, so that malaman natin, sino ba yung affected? Kailan lang ba ito nangyayari? Because diseases do not occur at random. So, disease patterns can be identified and contribute to the predictability of the disease. So, pag sinabi natin rainy season, marami ng leptospirosis dyan. Kasi usually, sa mga rainy season yan, dengue, mas marami na. Yun. So, it provides clues as to the etiology of the disease. Now, siyempre, ang dinidescribe natin sa epidemiology ng descriptive is the person. Sino ba yung affected? No? Time. Kailan ba nangyayari ito? For example, during dry season or rainy season ba siya? Yung gano'n. Pag mag-inaw o pag mainit na panahon. Yan. Saan nangyayari ito? Place, no? Where is the problem occurring? Now, yung problem na yon, pwede siyang health-related state. For example, sakit. Pwede rin naman siyang wellness. Pwede rin, no? Okay, so in descriptive epidemiology, we examine existing facts. So parang ganito, person, if you look at morbidity rates sa buong Pilipinas, sino yung affected ng mga measles? If you look at the table, medyo mas marami ang mga bata na nagkakasakit ng measles. Di ba? How about gonorrhea? Anong mga ages na meron ang gonorrhea? Usually, mga mas pinakamarami, ito, 20 to 24 years old. Pero, there are some early teens, meron na, no? Mga elderly meron din, pero mas marami, nagka-cluster siya dito sa mga 20 to 24. How about malignant neoplasm? Nangyayari siya sa mga children, however, mas marami ang mga medyo may edad na. So, pag ganun, if you look at the distribution of diseases per age group, meron kang malalamang predilection. Measles are common among children. Hindi na siya common sa mga matatanda. Pero nangyayari, di ba? Malignant neoplasm, mas marami pagka as we advance in age, yung malignant neoplasm cases are actually increasing. Infectious hepatitis, parang wala siyang pattern. Anyone of any age group can actually develop infectious hepatitis. Di ba? Parang COVID, wala rin siyang pinipili. Di ba? Okay, as far as place is concerned, case fatality rate of infectious hepatitis by region. Parang marami sa NCR, dito sa region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Region 5, marami rin. So anong meron sa region 5? No? So remember, this is case fatality rate. No? Hindi kaya related yan sa reporting? Sabi natin, de facto method of census allocation kapag ka vital events, di ba? Births, deaths, marriages. So baka naman maraming nare-report sa sa region 5. Kaya siguro siya yung pinakamataas. No? So pag titingnan mo yan, medyo more or less alam mo na, ay naku, huwag kang pupunta ng region 5. Baka pag nagka-infectious hepatitis ka dyan, makasama ka sa fatality dyan. No? So, pwede mo rin siyang tingnan. Okay, time. This is 1 year's time divided into weeks, no? Pag tinignan mo yung peak ng measles, kailan siya nagpipeak? This is during 15, 16, 17 weeks. Ito yung weeks ng in a year na more or less nasa summer months to kasi ito yung gitna. Tapos, earlier than the middle months, June, July. So, more or less nasa summer months yan. And you will actually notice, measles medyo mas marami sa summer months. Mas konti siya sa December, November, December. No? Meron din siyang mga cases pero nagpipick siya during this time. So, pag sinabi mo mga chickenpox, measles, rubella, usually nasa summer months siya. Okay, so based on the pattern, makikita mo kagad ng pwede mo na siyang i-describe. Mas common pala siya during this time, no? Okay, so yun nga, pwede nating i-examine yung sino yung affected, kailan to nangyayari, saan nangyayari, no? And we can actually generate hypotheses. Okay, so if you are given a graph like this, anong hypothesis ang pwede mong ma-generate? This is actually influenza, no? So, nung year, broken lines, ito yon. Ito yung pattern ng mga nagkaroon ng influenza. They affected the younger population and the elderly population. Yung mga bata na extremes of ages na kayo mga elderly, sila yung mga affected ng flu. Pero nung 1918, straight line na siya, no? Medyo hindi naman mas marami ring affected na bata, pero maraming affected na mga middle age group. At maraming affected din sa mga elderly. So, ibig sabihin, wala nang piniling mga edad. It could be, anong ma-generate ng hypothesis? The strain may also be changed, naiiba yung strain, virulence ng mga virus, pwede mong ma-generate yung ganong hypothesis. So, kaya, baka yung exposure, baka nga dahil mas malalakas yung mga immunity, pwede rin Kaya nung 1911 to 1917, yung flu dun sa mga malalakas na mga individuals, hindi sila extremes of ages, they were not actually affected. Pwede rin mong ma-generate yung hypothesis na yun. Okay. This one is a spot map. Tapos, kay yung sa cholera. Tapos, nakita, ito yung mga areas na may cholera. No? Bakit kaya? Kasi iisa lang pala yung supply ng water nila. So, it was determined na dahil pala yun doon sa water source na merong Vibrio cholera. Kaya, yung mga areas na yan, ang mga nagkaroon ng cholera. Yung mga areas na wala, so iba yung water supply pala nila. So what hypothesis was generated was because probably of the water supply, yung pump, merong mikrobyo. Kaya pala karamihan ng mga nasupplyan ng ganong water, nagkaroon ng cholera. So, ganda, no? It's just a plain description, ano lang siya, it's a spot map. And they just determined what are the areas na merong cholera. Tapos nalaman nila, oops, nandun pala yung source ng ano, it's the water supply that causes the epidemic of cholera. Okay, so descriptive study designs, no? Pwede nating pagkunan ng hypothesis. Yan. So for the epidemiologist, ano ba yung ano ba yung uses ng mga descriptive studies? This is to identify factors that possibly contribute to disease development because we are actually generating hypotheses. Katulad nung Vibrio cholera na nandun sa yung anuhan ng pump, ng water pump. So based on that hypothesis, na ano nila na yun pala ang cause ng epidemic. As public health administrators naman, your disease pattern or the descriptive study design will actually help us know about the burden of the disease. So, pwede kang magsabi na this area maraming ganong may sakit, no? So, prevalence studies, which are actually descriptive studies also, no? Ang meron para maging efficient ang saka ma-target yung program planning. Remember, you use the prevalence as your health planning indicator. You don't use incidence for that. You use prevalence. Kaya, for public health administrators, we can actually determine the burden of the disease using descriptive study. By using, by just describing the disease pattern, sino yung affected, anong place, saka anong time nangyari yung mga disease occurrence na yun. Okay, so these are the sources of descriptive studies. No, you can use your census data, vital statistical records, surveys on food consumption, medication use. So, pwedeng malaman yan. May mga ganyang surveys kasi para malaman natin ano yung pattern. No? Patient records from clinics or hospitals, employment health examinations. Actually, sa mga students, meron din kayong profile ng health. We can actually do descriptive studies out of those. No? So, they are readily available, less resource intensive than your analytic studies. Kaya, hindi mahal gumawa ng descriptive studies. Pero, sabihin mo, napaka-simple. Pero, if you say descriptive studies, kahit na simple lang siya, it is very good as far as generating hypothesis. Okay, so ano ba yung mga classification ng descriptive study designs natin? According to the type of data collected, if you're dealing with individual data, you have your case report, case series, and prevalence survey. If you look into an aggregate data, then you have your ecologic study. So, what is a case report? This is a detailed account of a patient's experience and clinical manifestations that comprise a rather novel or atypical health or disease event. So, magkukwento ka ng isang pasyente na meron kakaibang feature ng sakit. Pwede kasi siyang mga common diseases, pero the features or the manifestations is actually novel or atypical. Medyo kakaiba yung presentation. Among the most common types of studies published in medical journals, yung mga case reports, ito yung mga interesting cases. Parang, kakaiba. So, what are the cases that are worth reporting? So, ito yun. A case which have been never before described. So, sa medical literature, wala pang ganun, magandang mag-describe ng isang case na never pa na-describe before. Para the whole medical community would know, ay, meron palang ganun. No? So, meron tayong mga new disease discoveries. So, out of those case reports, nalalaman, meron palang ganun. Eh, dati wala namang ganyan, pero meron palang ganun. No? A case of a very rare health or disease condition. Very rare. In the Philippines, for example, merong isa o dalawang cases na gano'n na hindi masyadong nakikita sa Pilipinas. Kailangan nating i-report yung mga gano'n. For example, this type of disease is common in other countries. Pero nakakita tayo ng first case in the Philippines. Then that is a rare condition here in our country. Kaya kailangan i-report yan. So that we will be aware na meron palang ganun. No? Medyo ma-alert ang medical community about that. Pwede rin namang a very common disease, a known disease, with clinical features. Iba ang presentation. Coronavirus, pag nung nag-aaral kami as medical students, wala lang yan, sipon lang siya. Pero iba ang presentation niya. Medyo respiratory na lower respiratory tract because coronavirus is actually sa upper respiratory tract. But if we see patients na ang feature sa pneumonia, lower respiratory tract, then kailangan i-report yun. A COVID patient na ang presentation is sore eyes. Iba, di ba? Hindi siya new ang clinical feature niyan. Then that has to be reported. Merong nag-report ng hearing loss. COVID siya pero hearing loss. Di ba wala siya sa listahan? Loss of taste, loss of smell, pero hindi naman sinabing nabingi. But this patient, iba ang feature niya. Meron siyang hearing loss. Then that case is actually a good case to report kasi new clinical feature. Known disease na yun, ha? Okay. Pwede rin namang a known disease showing a novel pattern. Yun nga, no? Yung SARS, yung COVID-19, naging novel siya. Kaya it has to be reported. So these are the cases which are nice to be reported. Kasi kung hindi naman ni-report yan, how would it be known to the medical community? Hindi yun malalaman kung hindi ni-report. Okay, so example, case of mystery SARS, like illness found outside China for the first time. That was January of 2020. So, nung una, mystery disease. No? So, pag ganon, maganda siyang i-report. Katulad nito, 1975, medyo during that time, nauso kasi yung frisbee. That's actually a plastic rounded plate na you throw them and kinakatch ng dalawa kunyari nagsasaluhan ng frisbee. And then, merong isang doctor na nag-describe ng frisbee finger. So what is frisbee finger? If you hold the frisbee ng plate na gano'n, so nagkakakalyo. So the frisbee finger was described as callus formation dito sa inner portion ng palm, saka dito sa yung lateral, this is the lateral aspect of the index finger, right hand. Kasi mga karamihan ng mga nag-frisbee, right-handed. So, biro mo yun, kalyo lang, dinescribe as frisbee finger. That's a case report. Galing, ano? So, para alam natin, pag meron kang kalyo doon, ay, baka, nag-frisbee ka ba? Yun. So, yun. Ang galing. Sobrang simple, kalyo lang yung dinidescribe, pero it was ever reported. Okay, 1985, ewan ko kung pinanganak na kayo, nag-uso yung break dancing. Yun. Tapos, merong mga doctors na nag-describe ng mga break dancing neck. Ano ba yung break dancing na neck? No? So, they have ossified for yun ha, sa mga dancers na nag-break dancing. So, ano ba yung break dancing? Nakita nyo na ba yan? Baliktad sila para silang turumpo, no? Yung head nila ang nagto-turn gano'n. They balance, no? Using their head. Siyempre yung neck may effect din yun sa neck, no? So nakabaliktad sila, ikot sila ng ikot para silang turumpo. And those break dancers dinescribe ang mga neck nila. That was 1985. No? Galing. Okay, how about case? A case series naman is a group of patients. No? These are several subjects manifesting similar signs and symptoms and linked by a common exposure and experience. You write them in one paper. So maraming pasyente, pwedeng a group of patients yan, pare-pareho yung manifestations, tapos i-describe mo sa isang paper. No? This is a collection of individual case reports. Usually, pag mga may epidemic, no? Usually mga sabay-sabay yan eh. So pwede mo silang i-describe in one paper. Yan. And this is often used as an early warning sign of an epidemic. Bakit may ganito? Parang dumadami na yung cases ng gano'n. Alam niyo ba, yung start ng pandemic, merong mga cases na ni-report na parang ilan na yung nag-report ng mga SARS-like illnesses. That was January 2020. So that was the early warning sign of the coming pandemic. Yun pala, no? So using a case series rather than a single case report can mean differentiating between formulating a useful hypothesis and merely documenting an interesting medical oddity. So you can actually generate hypotheses. Oh, parang pare-pareho yung exposure nila. So siguro yan yung maganda ngang di ba? Mag-generate ng hypothesis. Siguro yan yung causative agent ng sakit na yan. Okay. So some of the examples of our case series would be the Fritz and Johnson, 1974, meron silang nireport na 3 cases of hepatic angiosarcoma among vinyl chloride workers. So dun sa mga vinyl chloride workers, merong nagkaroon ng hepatic angiosarcoma. So they hypothesized that if you were exposed to vinyl chloride, that might predispose you to liver cancer. No? So it generates hypotheses. Galing. Pero ano yung mga limitations ng case report and case series? Sabi natin, meron silang mga advantages, no? Kasi mura lang gumawa ng case report eh. Mga case series, descriptive siya, kaya hindi siya resource intensive. Mura siyang gawin. Pero you cannot use the case report or the case series to test hypothesis, no? You cannot test for the presence of a valid statistical association. Now, case report is based on experience of one person, while case series naman, group of people. Pero dahil wala kang appropriate comparison group, hindi mo talaga masasabi na siya ang nagkukos ng ganong sakit, no? What you can do is just generate hypothesis. Kasi wala tayong non-vinyl chloride workers. Kaya hindi natin masabi na ito talaga yung si vinyl chloride ang nag-cause ng liver cancer. Kasi wala tayong comparator group. Which is actually used in analytic studies. Meron kang comparator group para ma-check mo kung talagang related or associated yung exposure sa outcome. Okay, next we have prevalence survey. Prevalence, another term for prevalence study is your cross-sectional study. No? Meron kasing cross-sectional na descriptive at meron ding cross-sectional na analytic. Okay, so this study determines the proportion of individuals with a disease or other health event in a defined population of a given time point. So at one point in time, ilan ang existing cases? We have discussed this before, diba? Yung word na prevalence, number of existing cases of a certain disease at a point in time divided by the population examined at that particular point in time times a factor. So actually, this is the so-called prevalence proportion. Proportion, diba? The numerator is part of the denominator. So it provides a snapshot of the population's health experience at a specified time. So pag sinabi natin, dito sa group natin, ilan sa atin ang merong mataas na blood pressure. So we are 33 in the platform. Titingnan natin, ilan sa atin ang mataas ang BP. So siya yung mga numerator divided by 33 times a factor. It could be 100, 1,000, or whatever. No? So yung existing lang. So ngayon lang natin titingnan kung ano. So it doesn't matter whether dati ka pang mataas ang BP or ngayon lang tumaas ang BP mo. Basta mataas ang BP mo at this point in time, you will be part of the numerator kasi existing case. Okay, kailan mo ginagamit ang prevalence survey? You can assess health status healthcare needs of the general population because you're looking into the burden of the disease. Ilan sa atin ang high blood? Ilan sa atin ang may malabo ang mata? No? It talks about the burden of the disease. And then distribution of physiologic or biochemical measurements. So you can use that, anthropometric, blood chemistry. No? Pwede mong aralin yan. Impact of health intervention like immunization coverage, length of hospital stay. So among this group, aalamin natin, ilan sa atin ang fully immunized na, saka may booster. So pwede natin i-assess ang health status or healthcare needs ng general population using a prevalence survey. Okay. This can also provide information on prevalence of disease or other health outcomes in special groups. So, pag sinabing, among medical students, ilan ang merong anxiety? So, pwede mo ring alamin yan, no? Among medical students, ilan ang mabigat? Obesity. With these online classes, lahat tayo nagkanda-tabaan. No? So, third-year students are actually looking into obesity status of our medical students. Yung mga third year natin gumagawa ng research. So nakita, medyo tumaba ang mga medical students dahil kaka-online classes. No? Okay, so next we have ecologic study. Ecologic study, instead of individual patients or people, ano siya? Aggregate ang data natin. This is a study that compares frequency of disease and or other health outcomes among groups. So, ang inaaral mo are groups of people. Taken as one, hindi siya yung hindi siya individual. They are taken as a group, as an aggregate data. These have been used extensively by social scientists. Karamihan ng mga ecologic studies, nag-umpisa yan ng ang mga gumagawa niyan, karamihan mga social scientists, no? Dahil kasi madali siyang gawin at medyo hindi siya mahal gawin, inexpensive, no? So, it utilizes aggregate data. So, meron siyang mga summaries ng mga mean or proportion of observations, while aggregate data are derived from individuals in each group. The researcher of an ecologic study rarely has access to this individual level data. Like for example, pag sinabing ilan na ang nag-COVID sa Pilipinas. So, DOH data. Bibigyan ka ng These are not individual level data. They are actually taken as an aggregate data. Ibibigay sa'yo, 2,700 ang nagka-COVID last week. So that's an aggregate data. Hindi mo na alam kung sino ba yung 2,700 people na yan. It is given to you as a collective aggregate data. Okay, so ano yung mga characteristics ng data na ginagamit para sa ecologic studies? We have aggregate data of often readily available to mga to. Uses routinely collected demographic data, vital statistics, or consumer information. Data on disease and data on exposure did not come from the same source. Pwedeng yan. So there are several types of ecologic studies. We have multiple group comparison. So NCR, yan. Tingnan mo yung fertility rate ng by region. Pero ang aggregate data na binibigay sa atin would be data from each region. So hindi na tayo nasa individual data, di ba? Nasa per region. So pag sinabi mong fertility rate, sino yung maraming mga pinapanganak? Bicol, marami. Central Visayas, ang daming nanganganak. NCR, number 3 lang ang NCR. No? So, maraming nanganganak pala dito sa mga lugar na yan. No? So, they are taken as aggregate data. Hindi mo nakikita yung individual persons dyan. No? Ang tawag dito, multiple group comparison. Kasi several regions of the country ang kinompare. Pwede rin ganyan, nasa mapa. No? So green, less than 2%, yellow is intermediate, and red is more than 7%, which is what? Distribution ng hepatitis B, chronic hepatitis B infection. Ang Pilipinas, ang dami, no? Maraming chronic hepatitis B. Kasi wala tayong immunization dati. Pero after several years, nagkaroon na tayo ng mass immunization. Children should be immunized against hepatitis B para hindi ka na magkaroon ng chronic hepatitis B. Yung mga mothers are screened. Kunyari, positive si mother ng Hep B, then the child should be immunized kaagad ng immunoglobulin and Hep B vaccine. So, antigen saka antibody sabay, no? Para hindi ma-infect yung bata. Okay, we also have time trend or time series. So, merong mga graphical presentation ng line graph. It shows the example, communicable diseases, malignant neoplasm, diseases of the heart. Compare. Pataas ang mga diseases of the heart. Yung malignant neoplasm, hindi naman siya ganun tumaas, pero medyo tumataas yung trending. While the diseases of the heart, while communicable diseases, medyo bumababa. Yan, over the years yan, ha? So, this is an example of your time series trending. No? Okay, correlation study. Correlation, meron kang y-axis, meron kang x-axis. Tapos, titignan mo kung correlated. Like this one, it has something to do with what? Daily consumption of fat. Ito yun, daily consumption of fat. Tapos, tinignan nila yung incidence ng breast cancer. Okay. If you talk about breast cancer, may effect kasi yung estrogen dyan, no? Pero si estrogen, actually, if you look at the biochemistry of estrogen, yung chemical structure ng estrogen, yung middle core niya is actually the cholesterol. No? Kaya sabi, meron bang relationship yung pagkain mo ng consumption mo ng fat saka incidence ng breast cancer. So, dito nakita natin it's an upward trend. No? Ng cancer is tumataas. Like for example, USA, mataas ang consumption nila ng fats. So, the incidence of breast cancer is also high. Japan, ang food intake nila puros mga isda. Kaya, they have low intake of consumption of fat intake, pero ang breast cancer incidence nila is also low. Cuba, ganun din. Rome, pero Canada, USA, UK, bakit ang dami nilang baka it has something to do with their total fat intake. Yan. But remember, this is just a trend, no? Hypothesis generation lang, ha? Yan. So maraming correlation, no? It can be strongly or positively correlated, negative correlation, some degree of positive correlation and some degree of negative correlation. This one, walang pattern, no correlation whatsoever. Yan. No? Ito yung problema ng ecologic study. Though if you plot them, parang ang ganda, no? Parang sabi mo, totoo yun. Mas marami kang kinain na fats, mas mataas ang incidence ng breast cancer. Pero may tinatawag na ecological fallacy. No? So this one is making a causal inference at the individual level from an aggregate level analysis of data. Remember, if you're talking about ecologic data, you're dealing with aggregate data. Pero hindi mo talaga pwedeng hindi mo pwedeng i-generalize at the individual level. No? Yun yung tinatawag na ecological fallacy. To say that there is an association between the factor and the outcome at the individual level when such is seen at the population level. Yun. Pwede kasing nagkataon lang. Hindi ibig sabihin yun na ang cause nun. No? Kaya you cannot really look at it at the individual level. Pag sinabi mo kasing incidence of breast cancer, you're looking into the individual level. But if you look at the total consumption per country, it's an aggregate level na So, hindi siya tugma. Kaya, caution na hindi tayo pwedeng magkaroon ng causal inference at the individual level from an aggregate level analysis of data. No? The conclusion about the individuals is drawn from the observation of the population to which the individuals belong. No? Yan yung tinatawag na ecological fallacy. So, ingat lang tayo when we draw conclusions. No? Kaya ang gusto lang nating mangyari pag nag-ecologic study tayo, we just give trending, yung mga possible hypothesis. But we cannot say that it was because of that factor kaya nagkaroon ng outcome. Remember, hindi siya analytic. It's a descriptive study. No? Okay, parang yung ginawa ni Emil Durkheim, sabi niya, Protestants are found to kill themselves, suicide down, no? Much more often than Catholics. So that's actually an ecologic fallacy kasi nga, pag sinabi mong suicide, that's an individual level issue. Hindi yan aggregate level issue. No? Nagkataon lang na yung inaral nilang lugar, mga religion nila, puros mga Protestants. Kaya tuloy, syempre, magkakaroon ng disproportion ng sasabihin, maraming nagpakamatay ng mga Protestants. Pero actually, hindi. No? So that's an ecologic fallacy. So what would be the limitations of your ecologic studies? Correlational data represent average rather than actual exposure levels. Any apparent association may be masking a more complicated relationship between exposure and disease. Kaya trending lang dapat, hindi tayo pwedeng mag-conclude kaagad. You just have to generate hypothesis. No? Kasi may problem din sa temporal ambiguity. Diba? You study the factor and the outcome at the same time. Hindi naman ka nag-umpisa sa factor, wait until sometime bago magkaroon ng outcome. Therefore, merong temporal ambiguity. No? And then difficulty in controlling for the effects of potential confounders. Sa ecologic study, hindi mo naman tiningnan yung mga confounders dyan. Kaya baka sakali, yun yung mga nagkakos pala nun. Hindi pala yung mga actual independent variables that you are trying to study. Baka mga confounders pala yun. Okay, pero why do we still use ecologic study? Because it is low cost and convenient to do. Mura lang siyang gawin. You just get data. Meron namang available data sources, no? Simplicity of analysis and presentation. You can draw your graphical presentation, scatter plot. You can also make use of your bar graph. Yun, simple lang siya. Ang dali lang siya gawin. Interest in ecologic effects, no? Impact of population interventions like policies and programs. Pwede mo makita agad, nung binigyan ng fluoride doon sa water, nawala yung mga nawala yung mga dental caries nila. So that's an impact of population intervention. Limitations of individual level studies. Meron din naman kasi talagang mga limitations yung mga individual level studies, no? Exposure effects that vary minimally from person to person but significantly between clusters of individuals. So in occupational health, environmental epidemiology, social epidemiology, mas ginagamit natin ang ecologic study because if you look at the yung group level, mas makikita mo yung effect. Okay, so that's about our descriptive study designs. Okay, wait lang. Sandali Okay. Yan, 6 o'clock na pala. Okay, so can you see the slides now?
Yes po, Doc.
Okay, so we'll go to analytic study designs. Yan. This is actually a review of what you have learned in research also. No? So we will be describing analytic study designs in terms of features niya, mga measures of disease occurrence and of association. If you still remember that, incidence, prevalence, ito yung mga odds ratio, yung mga risk ratio, etc. Their advantages and disadvantages, and analyze and correctly interpret your analytic studies. No? Yan. Okay, so in epidemiology, ang gusto nating mangyari, malaman natin yung causes of the disease. Kasi, o kaya causes of death. Para alam mo kung paano mo ma-prevent yung sakit na yon o kaya yung death. So, that's the role of our epidemiology. Malaman yung mga risk factors o kaya exposure factors para ma-prevent natin yon. So, if you talk about factors, we are referring to exposure factors, risk factors. The outcome would be either disease or death. Actually, sa epidemiology ngayon, kasi we're talking about wellness nowadays, even the event of interest can also be recovery, wellness, pwede rin yan, no? Or health. Yan. Now, understand that pag nagkasakit ang isang tao, dapat nauuna yung exposure. Di ba? It has to precede the outcome. Lagi siyang nauuna. Bago ka magkasakit, dapat meron kang exposure muna. Nauuna lagi yung risk factor o kaya yung exposure factor. Tapos, you wait until sometime bago magkaroon ng outcome. That's the natural history of the disease. Laging una, no? So in epidemiology, dapat mauna yung exposure. O sige. Okay, pag sinabi nating outcome, we are referring to what? Health-related events of interest. For example, death, diseases like AIDS. Pag sinabi mong exposure, having or being exposed to a potential cause or risk factor for disease or other outcomes. So, for example, smoking, yan. O kaya having sex with someone who has sexually transmitted infection. That's an exposure. Pag sinabi mong unexposed, syempre, hindi ka not having or not being exposed to that potential risk. Okay, cases would be yung mga may sakit. Controls would be individuals that are disease-free, wala silang sakit. No? Kasi kailangan merong, ang analytic study kasi meron siyang na-expose o hindi na-expose, may sakit o walang sakit. Ganun dapat para mako-compare mo. Ganyan ang feature ng analytic studies. No? The role of the analytic studies is to test the hypothesis of relationship between at least dalawang variables, isang independent at isang dependent variable. The independent variable is the exposure variable, while the dependent variable is the outcome or the disease. Yun yung outcome of interest. Okay, so if you're talking about hypertension, cigarette smoking. Meron bang tao na nag-smoke Meron din, di ba? Sila yung mga swerteng mga tao. Kahit anong smoke nila, hindi sila naha-high blood. No? Ano yun? Rare people. Mga ano yan, blessed siguro sila. No? Okay, so kung kunwari gagawa tayo ng isang cross-sectional study, ano ba ang paggawa ng cross-sectional study? So we get a population, kuha tayo ng sample, and out of the sample, aalamin natin ilan sa kanila yung mga nag-i-smoke na merong hypertension. Nag-i-smoke pero walang hypertension. Hindi nag-i-smoke pero high blood sila. Tapos, sino pa yung mga taong walang smoking at wala ring high blood? So, sa totoo lang, meron kasing 4 categories ng mga tao di ba? So, kahit na nag-i-smoke sila, merong iba nagka-high blood, merong iba walang high blood. Yung iba, hindi nag-i-smoke, malas lang, may high blood. Tapos, yung iba, hindi na, ito yung hypothesis natin talaga. Pag hindi ka nag-i-smoke, hindi ka na high blood. Pag nag-i-smoke ka, ma-high blood ka. Pero sa totoo lang, meron talagang 4 categories ng mga tao. Yan. Ganyan ang cross-sectional study. You are studying the factor and the outcome at the same time. So pag pumunta tayo ng community, gagawa tayo ng cross-sectional study. At one point in time, pupunan natin sila ng blood pressure. Tapos at one point in time, tatanungin din natin sila, kayo ba nag-i-smoke o hindi? And then classify them into 4 categories. No? At lalabas, meron talagang mga ganyang 4 na categories. Okay, now, in a prevalence, cross-sectional study is also called your prevalence study. In a prevalence study, ano yung pwede nating i-measure? Measure of disease frequency. So you can determine ilan ang high blood sa kanila. So sino yung mga may high blood dito? Disease present, saka disease present. Bilangin natin kung ilan itong mga merong disease present, saka itong mga merong disease present dito. That would be our numerator. Denominator would be all of these people na nasa 4 na categories. Then we can compute for the point prevalence. Yan, that's the measure of disease frequency that we can compute out of a cross-sectional study. Okay. So, ano ang feature ng cross-sectional study? At time 0, at one particular point in time, inaaral mo yung exposure tsaka outcome at one particular point in time. No? And then, people can be categorized into 4 categories. Merong exposure, may outcome, may exposure, walang outcome. Walang exposure, may outcome, walang exposure, walang outcome. No? At one point in time. Okay, kailan natin ginagamit ang cross-sectional study? We can use that to estimate the burden of the disease, no? And then establish the baseline data, determine association between coexisting variables. Pwede ka kasi mag-aral ng maraming factors. So that's your cross-sectional study. However, meron lang din talaga siyang mga disadvantages, di ba? Mamaya, pag-uusapan natin yung mga disadvantages niya. What can we measure out of the cross-sectional study? We can measure the prevalence in the population, the whole population, ilan ang may sakit na high blood. And we can also measure ano ang mga prevalence ng mga people na na-exposed, ano yung prevalence among the unexposed individuals, unexposed sa smoking. And we can measure also the measure of association called the prevalence ratio. Ngayon, ito kapag ka-measure mo lang ito, prevalence in the population, prevalence among exposed, prevalence among unexposed, then that is the so-called descriptive cross-sectional study. Pero pagka nag-compute ka na ng measure of association, which is the prevalence ratio, ano na siya? May comparator ka na. So that becomes an analytic cross-sectional study. Okay. So, madali lang mag-compute ng prevalence proportion, di ba? We have the number of existing cases divided by the population examined at a point in time times a factor. So, here we can have the 3 computations na prevalence of the sample, buong population, prevalence among the exposed, prevalence among the unexposed. Yan. Tapos, pwede kang mag-compute ng measures of association, which is the prevalence ratio. So a ratio, ang sabi natin sa ratio, you have the numerator and the denominator. Prevalence among the exposed divided by the prevalence among the unexposed. So, merong magiging value, di ba? The ratio is a single number representing the size of two numbers. If the ratio, kunyari, the numerator and the denominator is the same, then the prevalence ratio is equal to 1. Our null value is 1. No? So, meaning, pag 1, ma-expose ka man o hindi ka man ma-expose, wala lang. No? So, the exposure is not associated with the outcome. Kaya hindi siya ano. Pero if the exposure is negatively associated, less than 1, then that becomes what? Protective. Pagka more than 1, numerator, mas marami. Ano yung numerator? Exposure yon. Sa baba, denominator, unexposed, di ba? Yun. If the number is more than 1, meaning the exposure variable positively associated with the outcome. Baka yung cause ay dahil dun sa exposure. Pero pag less than 1, that means yung non-exposure mo is protective. Yun. Yung baba, di ba? Unexposed. Kaya pag mas malaki yun, protective yun. That is how you interpret the prevalence ratio. Okay. Ito yun, nakwento ko na yan. Okay. So, ano yung advantages ng cross-sectional study? It is resource efficient. Mura lang gumawa ng cross-sectional study. In 15 minutes, you're done with your study. Kasi nga, nagtanong ka, ikaw ba may high blood? Nagsisigarilyo ka ba o hindi? Tapos na. Ganun lang. At one point in time, it is resource efficient. It does not suffer attrition because hindi ka na walang follow-up eh. Kaya it does not suffer attrition. And the result is generalizable. This is often based on a sample of the general population. Kaya pwede kang mag-generalize using a cross-sectional study. Ang problema, ganito. Di ba sabay mong inaral si exposure at si outcome? O sabi natin, dun sa introduction natin, you have to have the exposure beforehand. Allot some time, tapos tingnan mo kung magkakasakit o hindi. Diba? Pero dahil hindi nauna ang exposure, sabay mong inaral si exposure sa outcome, it is very difficult to establish causality. No? Ang tawag doon, temporal ambiguity. No? Kasi hindi mo nga masabi, sino ba nauna? Yung high blood o yung smoking? Hindi mo siya maano. Which came first? You do not know. Ang tawag doon, temporal ambiguity. That is the problem of your cross-sectional study. You cannot establish causality kasi sabay mo siyang inaral. No? Kaya hindi mo na-trace kung nauna si exposure bago nagkasakit. Eh, sabay eh. Kaya you cannot establish causality. Okay. So, siguro may magandang study para masabi natin kung yung factor na yon ang nag-cause ng ng sakit na yon. Diyan lalabas yung mga cohort study, no? A study, example nito. A study looked at whether exposure to bisphenol A, BPA, early in life affects obesity levels in children later in life. So, tinignan yung mga in utero to prenatal BPA concentration sa nanay, no? Tapos titingnan kung gaano kataas yung level ng BPA. Tapos at a later time pag nanganak na yung mother, yung child kung ilang taon na sila, kunyari 7 years old, titingnan kung kamusta na sila. Biro mo yon? At a later time, inalam kung magkakaroon ng obesity yung bata o hindi. So, this study is a cohort study. May nakitang positive association between prenatal BPA concentrations in urine and increased fat mass index, percent body fat, and waist circumference at age 7. At a later time, inaral yung mga bata kung tumaba, malaki ba yung nila, waist circumference, may fat deposits ba sila. Biro mo yun? So, they started prenatal, urine ng nanay, tapos children at a later time. So, nauna ang exposure, and then the outcome, which is obesity at age 7, was determined at a later time. Yan yung cohort, no? So the factor is PPA, the outcome is adiposity. So at the start, dapat wala pang obese sa kanila, di ba? Oh, di ba ganun din to? Dito sa ano na to, sa study na to, prenatal. So hindi pa to mga nasa tiyan pa lang ng mother yung bata, no? Wala pang obese sa kanila. So at the start, those with the outcome of interest should already be excluded. So dapat walang may sakit, no? So ang cohort study, they would start with yung outcome, dapat walang outcome, no? They have to be excluded at the onset. So anong ibig sabihin ng word na cohort? Cohort would be a group whose members share a distinct set of characteristics. They should be followed up within a specific period of time. So, itong cohort group yan, same yung features, dapat wala pa silang sakit, tapos ipa-follow up sila at a later time. No? The shared characteristics may be secondary to a common setting, pwede siyang a school cohort or common experience. Example, a birth cohort. No? Meron tinatawag na cohort effect. Cohort effect refers to the secular change of disease frequency in a group as influenced by membership in that particular group. So, cohort effect. Like for example, if I say, FEU NRMF medical students, meron kayong distinct na feature, no? Because you share the same experience. We saw among medical students ng FEU NRMF, mga resilient, no? Hindi natutumba. Wow. Yun yung nakita naming feature sa mga FEU NRMF students. Kapag ka nahirapan sa isang subject, sige pa, tuloy-tuloy ang laban. No? Hindi nag-give up. Yun yung nakikita namin sa FEU NRMF medical students. Yan yung cohort effect niya. Kasi you were in one experience na medyo pinahirapan kayo ng mga examinations ng physiology, ng di ba? CFM1, ng ano. Pero we found out that you are very resilient. Yan yung cohort effect nyo. Galing, ano? Kaya malalakas ang loob ng mga taga-FEU NRMF. Totoo yan. Okay, ano ang kwento ng cohort study? You start with the exposure. Walang outcome, ha? Remember, pag may outcome, out na kagad siya. Ang meron lang sa start of the study are a group of people naturally exposed and a group of people naturally unexposed. May exposure at walang exposure. No? So the exposure is measured at the present time, time 0, and the participants are followed up to measure the outcome at a later time. Kaya yung time 1 would be at a later time. So titingnan doon sa mga na-expose kung magkakasakit o hindi. Doon sa mga hindi na-expose kung magkakasakit o hindi. So your cohort study follows the natural sequence of the natural history of disease. Diba? So ang premise natin, if it is the exposure that causes the disease, for sure yung outcome marami. If you're not exposed, then probably hindi ka magkakasakit. Diba? Yun yung hypothesis natin. Now, they have to be followed up through time. Now, etong mga nagkasakit dito, dati wala silang sakit, tapos nagkasakit sila. So, dahil nagkasakit sila, ngayon, anong tawag sa kanila? Are they new cases or old cases? Diba? Wala silang sakit dati, tapos nagkasakit sila ngayon. Therefore, they are new cases. No? So, pag new cases, ano yung measure of frequency, disease frequency that you can compute out of a cohort study? You can actually compute the incidence. Diba? Kasi nga, new cases. Okay. So another term for a cohort study would be follow-up study, because the feature of a cohort study, if a follow-up mo sila through time. So another term for a cohort study is a follow-up study. Minsan naman super tagal. No? Sometimes it takes a lifetime to do a cohort study. Just like yung Quaker Oats, no? Yung Quaker Oats study, it's a longitudinal study of several decades and generations of yung mga generations of families, no? So longitudinal. Therefore, there are very, very few cohort studies in the world. Napaka-konti yan. Kasi nga sobrang haba. And you can also call that as incidence study because you can compute for the incidence rate. Okay. Ang problema sa cohort, minsan napakatagal. No? Yung dahil sa matagal, minsan namamatay na yung researcher. Hindi pa tapos yung study. No? Okay. So there are 3 types of cohorts. We have ito, from the start to the future. Yan yung timeline natin. Ha? There are 3 types of cohorts. We have prospective cohort or the concurrent cohort study, which is the usual, yung kinuwento natin kanina. You start with the exposure and end with an outcome. So that's prospective study. The researcher starts at the, kasama ang researcher sa umpisang-umpisa ng study hanggang sa kung anong mangyari doon sa mga cohort na ina-observe. That's the classical prospective cohort study. Meron din tinatawag na retrospective cohort that the researcher is at the end of the study. Yun. Tapos, nag-collect siya ng data retrospectively. So, the exposure and the outcome, ganun pa rin. Exposure to outcome. Pero, kinolect lang niya pabaliktad. Retrospectively. No? That you call as the retrospective cohort. Now, pwede rin namang nasa gitna si researcher. No? So, initially, yung mga exposure data, pwede niyang kunin retrospectively. And dahil hindi pa nagkakasakit, so meron siyang prospective aspect. No? So, yung prospective, kung magkakasakit ba sila o hindi. So, nasa gitna si researcher. So, meron siyang part na retrospective at meron siyang part na prospective. That you call as the ambispective. But remember, the projection, no? Exposure muna bago outcome. Laging ganon yung sequence of collecting of data from the exposure down to the outcome. Okay, so ano yung uses ng cohort study? Kanina, yung cross-sectional study, walang time. Ito ang sumagot dun sa problema ng cross-sectional study kasi marami siyang time. No? So it calculates risk of developing disease. It establishes the temporal relationship between the study variable, exposure, time, outcome. So yung temporal relationship was established na hindi mo nakita sa cross-sectional study. It is expedient in examining multiple outcomes, no? And practical in studying rare exposures. Magandang cohort studies are rare exposure kasi nga, you start with the exposure. Diba? And then, tingnan mo kung magkakaroon ng sakit o hindi. Okay, these are the measures that we can compute. Incidence proportions or incidence rates. We can, number of new cases lang naman siya. Diba? What would be the measures of association? The risk ratio and the rate ratio. No? May difference ba yun? Mamaya, titingnan natin. Incidence proportion, the number of new cases divided by the population at risk of developing the disease in that same time period. So this would describe the average risk of developing a disease condition. More useful in determining etiological risk factors of disease more than that of your prevalence proportion. Yan. Ang incidence rate naman, so naalala nyo ba last week yung pinag-usapan natin? Diba? Hindi naman siya cumulative, diba? Incidence. Minsan people would actually come and go sa iyong cohort study. So meron tayong tinatawag na total person time. Diba? Doon sa denominator. So pag ganon, you still have your new cases as numerator, denominator is person time. You call that as incidence rate. It describes the speed at which new cases occur. This is time at risk, no? Period or duration at which each person is vulnerable or at risk of developing the disease. Okay, now, kinocompute yung mga RR, relative risk, no? This is the incidence among exposed divided by the incidence among the unexposed. This is also called your risk ratio or the rate ratio. Pero pareho lang siyang RR, no? Relative risk, risk ratio, rate ratio, RR pa rin siya, no? Lagi ang formula, nasa taas ang exposed, nasa baba ang unexposed, no? So risk ratio is if you're comparing the incidence proportion, Rate ratio if you're comparing incidence rates. So, pareho lang din naman siya. How do you interpret? Very similar to your PR, no? Prevalence odds ratio. Ang RR na 1, wala lang. Exposure variable has no effect. Kasi ma-expose ka man o hindi, pareho lang. If it's greater than 1, meaning numerator is higher, the exposure variable is a risk factor. Less than 1, the exposure variable is a protective factor. Now, pag hindi ka na-expose, ano yun? Protective yun. Okay. Ito yung pag-interpret. If you have more than 1 na RR, then it shows association. You can actually read this as those with exposure were more likely to develop the disease. The RR is a more powerful effect measure than your OR because the OR, the odds ratio, is just an estimate of the relative risk. Later on, we'll talk about the odds ratio. Okay, so anong meron sa cohort study? Ang advantage niya, more likely to determine causality. Kasi parang natural history of the disease, di ba? You start with exposure and end up with the outcome. So, mas maganda siya compared cross-sectional study kasi meron kang temporal ambiguity sa cross-sectional study. Ano naman yung disadvantage niya? Because it takes too long. Masyadong matagal. Baka hindi pa magkasakit. No? Kaya maghintay ka pa. So this is what? Resource intensive. The longer your study, the more expensive it becomes. No? And it may need long follow-up period. It becomes very expensive and it suffers attrition. Some of your patients might not be staying with you in the study. Gusto nang umalis sa study mo. So it suffers attrition. Merong loss to follow-up. Yun yung problema ng cohort study. Pwede silang umatras. Umayaw na sila. Ayaw na nilang mag-wait doon sa study. No? So that's the problem of our cohort study. Pero maganda siya kasi nga, you start with exposure, makikita mo talaga siya yung pwede mag-establish ng causality. More so when you compute for the RR. Diba? Okay. Sabi natin, si cross-sectional study, walang time. Ang cohort study, super dami ng time. Yan. Ito naman, case control study. This is an in-between study that takes the advantage or captures the advantage of both advantages of both the cross-sectional and the cohort study. Kung walang time, ito meron. No? Tapos pag sobrang time, ito mas maikli ang time. So it tries to eliminate the temporal ambiguity of the cross-sectional study while at the same time shorten the duration of the study. So merong style na para shortcut ng konti. Ang gagawin natin, we start muna sa cases. Kuha ka muna ng cases mo. Doon na sa outcome of interest. No? Kuha ka from your target population. Cases are a group of people with the outcome of interest. Meron na silang sakit. Then, select another group of individuals without outcome of disease or disease as your control. So, meron kang set of people na meron ng sakit. Mag-umpisa ka na kagad doon sa end in mind, yung cases mo. Tapos, kuha ka ng kapartner niya na walang sakit na gano'n. No? So, for example, group of women in the reproductive age group, yung mga cases mo na merong breast cancer. Kuha ka ng group of women nasa reproductive age group pero walang breast cancer. No? So, yun yung mga controls mo. Tapos, tanungin mo na lang sila. Go back in time, retrospectively, to determine exposure in the cases as well as in the control. Tanungin mo na lang, ikaw ba na-expose o hindi sa oral contraceptives? Ganon. Napakadali. No? Para kang nag-sectional, nag-interview ka lang. It compares the exposure status among the cases and among the controls. So, parang pabaliktad. Kung doon sa cohort study, you start with the exposure and end with the outcome. Ito naman sa case control, you start with the outcome and ask the history na expose ka ba. Kaya parang baliktad ng cohort study. So, if you spell cohort ng pabaliktad, this is spelled as troho. Diba? Pag binaliktad mo ang cohort, troho. And an old name for a case control study is a Troho study. This is a board exam question. Okay. So, anong kwento ng case control study? So, you start with the outcome, compare that with the control, time 0, di ba? Present time. And then, ask the history. Ikaw ba na-expose o hindi? Doon sa mga walang sakit, tanungin mo, ikaw ba na-expose o hindi? Di ba? Shortcut. The outcome is measured at the present time kasi you start with the cases and the control, and the exposure of the participants in the past is estimated. Tinanong mo na lang, ikaw ba na-expose o hindi? Yan. That's your case control study. Shortcut. So, may difference ba ang case control study sa retrospective cohort? Kasi parang pareho yung picture, di ba? Okay. Remember, pag cohort, you always start with the exposure bago magkaroon ng outcome. Di ba? Ang direction is always papunta doon sa outcome. So, this one is the retrospective cohort. Now, this is the point in time, no? Present to, kunwari, no? Ang isang prospective cohort, exposure muna bago outcome. Yan. Pero, papuntang future. Pero, sa retrospective, no? Baliktad mo siya kinuha. Pero, remember, the direction of inquiry is always from exposure to outcome. Unlike your case control study, mauna ka muna sa outcome. Tapos pabaliktad mo, tinanong yung exposure. So yung arrow is pointing towards the exposure. No? So yun yung difference niya. Okay, so these are the two difference. Parang pareho pero hindi siya pareho. No? Okay, what are the uses of your case control study? It determines association between variables. It estimates relative risk. Remember, it's just an estimate of relative risk. Mas matapang ang cohort study. Therefore, ang relative risk mas matapang. Ang odds ratio is just an estimate of the relative risk. Kasi hindi siya kasing ganda ni cohort. Ine-estimate lang niya. No? It is expedient in examining multiple exposures, but practical in studying rare diseases. No? Maganda siya para sa mga rare diseases kasi you start already sa cases. Yun. Mag-umpisa ka na kagad sa sakit eh. Okay, ano yung measures of disease occurrence sa case control? Wala kang mako-compute kasi hindi ka pwede mag-compute ng incidence, hindi ka pwede mag-compute ng prevalence. Kaya wala. No? Ano naman yung measure of exposure occurrence niya? Exposure odds ratio. No? Tapos, measure of association is the odds ratio. Exposure odds pala, sorry. Exposure odds. And then, measure of association, odds ratio. So, let's look into the word odds. Anong ibig sabihin ng odds? The odds, probability of an event happening divided by the probability of an event not happening. So exposure odds, probability of having the exposure, and probability of not having the exposure. Okay. So exposure odds among cases, exposure odds among controls. Now, ito odds ratio. No? Odds of the disease among exposed, odds of the disease among unexposed. So, paano ba yung interpret? Pareho lang yung interpretation, no? Look at this. 1, exposure variable has no effect. More than 1, risk factor. Less than 1, protective. Pareho lang siya. Pero paano mo ini-interpret? Those with the disease are more likely to have the exposure. Dun sa relative risk, ano yun? Those who have the exposure are more likely to develop the disease. Ganon ha? Iba yung interpretation. Ito, those with the disease, may sakit, are more likely to have the exposure. No? Okay. So ano yung advantages ng case control study? Siyempre, tipid. Parang cohort, parang cross-sectional, di ba? Less resource intensive. Wala kang problema sa attrition. You don't have problems with loss to follow-up. Kasi nga, tinatanong mo lang yung exposure, di ba? Yun. Ang disadvantage niya, it is likely to suffer from problems with recall. Remember, di ba pag sinabi mo, na-expose ka ba? Tatandaan mo ba minsan? Minsan hindi, di ba? Kaya yun yung problema sa case control study. Recall bias. Yun yung problema. Okay. So, ang analytic studies, meron tayong tatlong klase, cross-sectional, cohort, saka case control. Pero if you look at this, meron bang manipulation na ginawa? Walang manipulation. So, ang tawag sa kanila, they are called observational studies. Now, meron ding isang klase na analytic study, pero merong element of manipulation. So, ito yung tinatawag na experimental study. Example, tiningnan yung effect ng dinagdagan ng Pilates to the treatment regimen ng NSAID used for individuals with chronic low back pain. Lahat ng mga pasyenteng merong masakit ang likod, siyempre umiinom na sila ng NSAID, no? Anti-inflammatory drugs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And then, dinagdagan ng Pilates yung treatment regimen. Anong mangyayari pag dinagdagan ng Pilates, no? So, this one is what? This is an exercise na tumatalon sila doon sa, parang malaking, yung parang Pilates. So, individuals who included the Pilates method in their therapy took fewer NSAIDs and experienced statistically significant improvements in pain, function, and quality of life. No? So, this one is an experimental study. Yan. So, ang experimental study is also called, maraming pangalan ng experimental studies very classic sa kanila yung randomized control trial. Very, very important sa experimental study, merong intervention. Yan. It's very important sa isang experimental study, may intervention. Tapos, para masabi mong true experimental study, merong randomization. No? So, ano yung randomization? They are randomized into test group or the experimental group and the control group. Generally, dalawang group yan. Isang test group at isang control group. Bago sila i-assign doon, mira-randomize sila. Ang randomization, the process of randomization ensures that both groups, test group and the control group, will become homogeneous. Yung characteristics nila will become homogeneous or the same, except for the treatment. Ang maiiba lang sa kanila yung treatment. That's the beauty of randomization. No? So, randomization is a board exam question. Don't forget that. So, para masabi mong true experimental study, you have to have randomization. At ang trabaho ng randomization, it ensures that both groups' characteristics will become the same, except for the treatment. So, in the former, itong study na to, no? Ang manipulation, yung isang group binigyan ng NSAID. That's the control group. Yung isa binigyan ng experimental Pilates, mga therapy dinagdagan, no? Anong nangyari? Tapos pagka kung mawawala ba yung significant yung pagbaba ng pag-inom ng NSAID saka yung mga pain nila, no? So, ang isang experimental study, groups would be randomized into experimental group saka yung control group. Yung experimental group, titingnan kung anong mangyayari, outcome or walang outcome. Yung control group, titingnan din kung anong mangyayari, may outcome o walang outcome. So, a cohort study, no? Parang siyang cohort, di ba? You start with the exposure or no exposure and end up with an outcome. Para siyang cohort. Pero, ang difference niya, meron kang, yung exposure is intentional. Sinadyang ma-expose at sinadyang hindi i-expose. Unlike a cohort study, it is what? Naturally exposed, naturally unexposed. No? Parang yung doon sa mga tao sa Japan, no? Nasa Hiroshima saka nasa Nagasaki. Sila yung nahulugan ng mga atomic bomb. they were naturally exposed. Di naman nila sinadyang magpa-expose, di ba? At hindi naman in-experiment eh. Nagkataon na hulugan lang sila ng atomic bomb. So they were naturally exposed to radiation. Yan. So, ano yan? Unlike your experimental study, sinadyang i-expose at sinadyang hindi i-expose. Merong assignment or manipulation. They were randomized, no? So, random allocation, kung sino yung mapupunta sa ano. How do you do randomization? Toss ka ng coin. O, pag head, dito ka. Pagka tail, dito ka. That's randomization. Or kaya, computer-generated, ano. Pwede ring systematic. Even number dito, add number dito. Yun. That's random allocation. So, the role of randomization is to ensure that both groups would be equal except for the intervention alone. Okay, so the experimental study is the best study design for controlling confounders. Para mabawasan yung mga confounders na yan, gamitan mo ng, ng randomized control trial. It provides the strongest causal inference. Why is it the strongest causal inference? Bakit? Kasi ikaw mismo ang nagbigay, ikaw mismo ang nag-withdraw. No? Sinadya. Kaya controlled lahat yan. Kaya siya yung nagbibigay ng strongest causal inference. So, as far as hierarchy is concerned, kung maganda na si cohort study, mas maganda ang experimental study. Okay, so randomization is also called your random allocation. This is the process of assigning each participant into a group, whether experimental or controlled, by chance. So, and then, those coin pwede. No? So, a defining feature of the modern trial design, no, is the randomized control trial. Pagka walang randomization na nangyari, ang tawag dyan, quasi-experimental study. There are some studies that you do some interventions, pero hindi naman ethical ang i-randomize mo siya. Community na ibigyan mo ng health promotion or health education. Alam namang i-randomize mo, hindi bibigyan saka bibigyan. Very unethical. Kaya, minsan, gumagawa tayo ng intervention without randomization. Ang tawag doon, quasi-experimental study. Okay, so ano yung pwedeng i-compute? Just like your cohort, pwede kang mag-compute ng incidence proportion, incidence rates, and the measures of association with the relative risk or risk ratio or rate ratio. Now, medyo iniba lang ang pangalan, pero pareho rin siya. It is treatment effect, no? So, pareho lang naman siya. Meron din tayong tinatawag na, treatment effect 1 minus RR, the proportion of cases of disease that were prevented by the intervention under study among those who received it. Okay, so meron tayong tinatawag na experimental event rate. So parang yung among exposed ito, no? And then controlled event rate among unexposed. Parang ganun din. And then the relative risk or the risk ratio, di ba? EER divided by CER. Ito, absolute risk reduction. So the difference between the CER and the EER. And then the RRR. Ano to? Ano tong RRR? Relative risk reduction. Relative to the original. Remember, original to, di ba? Relative to the control. No? Ano ang relative risk reduction? Okay, meron kang maririnig na numbers needed to treat. No? This is the number of patients who would have to receive the treatment for one of them to benefit. So the lower the number needed to treat, the better. Diba? This is calculated by 1 over ARR, absolute relative risk reduction. Okay, experimental studies, maraming klase siya. Clinical trial, community trial, therapeutic trial, intervention, so prophylactic trial, preventive measures. Yan. Parallel yung ganon. Crossover, bali, one after another. So, kumari, nasa experimental ka, tapos nasa control, tapos itutuloy yung study. And then, magkakaroon ng washout period, crossover kayo, and then, yung dating nasa control, siya naman yung experimental. yung nasa experimental, siya naman yung magiging control. Yun yung tinatawag na crossover design. Okay, ang problema lang ng experimental study, ethics, no? Ethical consideration. Kasi merong potential threat, di ba? Pwedeng ma-harm yung experimental group. Or kaya, loss of benefit dun sa control group. Yun yung problema sa experimental study. Just like cohort, it is also resource intensive. Kasi you also need follow-up period eh. And experimental studies are actually expensive. Medyo mahal. Parang cohort din siya. And syempre, marami ring naglo-loss to follow-up. Yun yung problema natin. Attrition is also a problem in experimental studies. Okay. Secondary studies. Meron tayong mga secondary studies. We have systematic review. Yan, medyo common na yan ngayon, ano? These are secondary studies. Yung mga naunang mga nabanggit natin, they are primary studies. Yung secondary studies are what? Review. Yan. Katulad nito, systematic review. A comprehensive review of all relevant studies. So maraming studies na na-combine on a particular clinical or health-related topic or question. The systematic review is created after reviewing and combining all the information from both published as well as unpublished studies, and then summarizing the findings. So, maraming mga, case studies, tapos may mga descriptive, merong mga analytic studies, i-combine. Tapos, inaaral siya. And one conclusion lang, summarizing the findings. No? Ang advantages niya, exhaustive review of the current literature and other sources, pwedeng kasama ang mga unpublished studies dyan, no? Less costly to review prior studies than to create a new study. Less time required than conducting a new study. Ang problema lang dyan, mahirap minsang maghanap ng mga unpublished papers. No? Ang advantages niya, results can be generalized and extrapolated into the general population more broadly than your individual studies. More reliable and accurate than individual studies. Kasi pooled yung data mo. No? And this is considered as evidence-based results. Ang disadvantage niya, minsan, mahirap maghanap ng unpublished data. Kaya yung paghanap ng unpublished papers, yun yung time-consuming. And sometimes, it may not be easy to combine studies because yung variables medyo iba-iba. Kaya dapat mayroon kang screening. Yun yung isa sa disadvantage ng systematic review. No? Okay. So these are the design pitfalls to look out for. Studies included in systematic reviews may be of varying study designs, but should collectively be studying the same outcome. So dapat titingnan mo yung kahit iba-iba yung mga study designs niya, pero dapat isa lang yung outcome. Some reviews may group and analyze studies by variables such as age and gender, factors that were not allocated to participants. So yun, titingnan natin yan. Okay, another is meta-analysis. Ang meta-analysis, after doing your systematic review, tapos i-apply mo yung analytic, mag-apply ka ng analysis, no? Yung RevMan. Then, it becomes meta-analysis. This is a method of systematically combining pertinent qualitative and quantitative study data from several selected studies to develop a single conclusion that has greater statistical power. Some studies, maliliit yung studies nila. Combine mo para lumaki yung population. This conclusion is statistically stronger than analysis of any single study due to increased number of subjects, greater diversity among subjects, or accumulated effects and results. Full data rin siya, pero ina-apply mo yung mga analysis. So, ginagamit to establish statistical significance with studies that have conflicting results. Kaya minsan, magandang mag-aral ng meta-analysis because you can actually gather more para malaman mo kung totoo o hindi. To develop a more correct estimate of effect magnitude and to provide a more complex analysis of harms, safety data, and benefits. Now, to examine subgroups with individual numbers that are not statistically significant. Okay, so anong other pinaggagamitan niya? Anong advantages niya? Greater statistical power, confirmatory data analysis, greater ability to extrapolate to general population affected. And again, this is evidence-based resource, parang systematic review. Problema niya, difficult and time-consuming to identify appropriate studies. Not all studies provide adequate data for inclusion and analysis. Kailangan mo yung detail. No? So sometimes you really have to reach out to the researcher, yung original authors ng hihingiin mo yung data, yung actual data nila ulit. Kasi i-re-analyze mo siya. Requires advanced statistical techniques, yung tinatawag na RevMan, no? And heterogeneity of study populations. Yun yung disadvantage niya. Minsan iba-iba yung population. Like for example, Caucasian, Asians, iba kasi some cultural differences, merong minsang effect dun sa study, results of the study. Okay, so these are the design pitfalls to look out for. The studies pooled for review should be similar in type. Kung lahat randomized control trial, dapat lahat ng studies gano'n. No? The analysis should include published and unpublished results kasi merong tinatawag na publication bias. No? Some studies don't get to be published. Kaya kung hindi natin na-include yung mga unpublished papers, talagang magkakaroon tayo ng publication bias. Okay, ito yung uso ngayon, real-world data. No? Sabi natin, ang gold standard para masabi mo yung cause and effect relationship is really the randomized control trial. That's the gold standard. However, di ba, minsan, so randomized control trials, alam natin they are gold standard conditions. Within the setting of the randomized control trials are often not comparable with the more heterogeneous populations in clinical practice. Sa totoo lang, ang iinom ng gamot na yon may also have other factors na hindi kasama dito sa in-include sa randomized control trial. Dito lalabas yung real world data. The heterogeneous population in the real world setting, ito yung mga pasyente na merong iba-ibang genetic makeup who present with different comorbidities or already receiving different medications for other comorbidities. Very heterogeneous sila. No? Dito mo makikita yung efficacy effectiveness gap. Yan. No? Kasi ito yung disparity ng findings ng therapeutic efficacy na nakita mo sa randomized control trial na baka hindi mo makita sa real world data. Yung actual na iinom ng gamot na yon. No? So, yun yung kagandahan ng real world data. Kumbaga, yung sinasabing after na nilabas na sa market, nasa phase 4 trial na, yun, magandang, yun na yun, real world data. No? So, what are the sources of this data? Galing sa patient registries, administrative claims, social media channels, biro mo yun, real world talaga. Ang application niya, different real environments providing insights into drug safety in health and financial terms and its long-term effects. There are still drugs na matagal na sa market after several years, 10 years or 15 years, dun lang nakita yung mga side effects na long-term. Napupull out pa rin sila. And they are actually catch up dito sa real-world data. Real-world data can improve decision-making, pre-authorization, and reimbursement of new drugs, treatments, and benefit medical research and patient outcomes. No? Napakaganda rin ng real-world data. Okay. So these are the types of research designs. Okay. Meron pang isa. Validity. Naku, 6 minutes na lang tayo. Okay. So, dapat alam din natin kung valid. No? So, ibig sabihin, maraming study designs na pwede natin pagpilian. Pero, we have to know kung valid yung ating mga studies. Yun naman yung importante. So again, we have descriptive study designs. Ang daming klase nun. Ang trabaho nun is to generate hypothesis. Analytic study designs is to determine association. Yan. Pwede ka nang mag-causality using analytic studies. And under analytic studies, we have observational and experimental studies. No? The goal of which is to test hypothesis, identify or protective factors. No? Pero, minsan, estimates lang kasi minsan no? So, hindi natin talaga alam kung tama yung estimate natin o hindi. Could it be the real prevalence or the real risk? Pwedeng may error dyan. Kaya kailangan valid, no? So, we look into the validity of the epidemiologic designs. Epidemiologic research involves generating and testing hypotheses about factors that cause or prevent disease. The major objective of every investigator who tests an etiologic hypothesis is to eliminate alternative explanations. Dapat matanggal yung mga alternative explanations na yan. A valid study is one in which the observed association is not due to various sources of errors. And actually, there are two sources of errors, systematic and random errors. No? Ano bang ibig sabihin ng bias? A bias is a systematic error that results in an invalid or incorrect estimate of the measure of association. So, may mali. A systematic error. So, example, it's a poorly designed study. Or the conduct of the study may problema. Non-comparable yung groups, saka merong measurement loss. That's your systematic error. O kaya, incorrect estimate, nagkamali ng estimate. It can be underestimation or overestimation of the true measure of association. So ano yung mga measures of association? We have the PR, RR, di ba? Saka yung odds ratio. Pwede siyang underestimate or overestimate. Yan. Okay, so tingnan natin yung mga biases, no? Meron tayong tinatawag na selection bias. So this results from procedures used to select subjects and factors that influence participation in the study. So for example, ang nakuha mong mga participants hindi dapat na nandun. Example, groups being compared should be as similar as possible with respect to all other factors that may be related to the disease, except the determinant under investigation. No? Pero minsan, ang nakukuha mo, hindi kasing comparable. Yun yung problema. So, sampling bias, allocation bias, responder bias. So, yan yung mga, ano yung sampling bias, no? So, could be, systematically excluding or kaya over-representing a certain group. So, kunwari, gusto mo mag-estimate ng, ng prevalence ng smoking sa isang population. Tapos, ang kinuha mo, city center. No? City center. If interviewers, if the interviews are only conducted on weekdays, so wala yung mga tao doon sa hindi represented well yung iyong na-interview. Doon. Kasi uuwi pa lang ng weekends yung mga mga nag-i-smoke pala. So, may bias na doon sa That's the so-called sampling bias, systematically excluding or over-representing certain groups. Allocation bias, ano naman to? Systematic differences in the way in which subjects are recruited in different groups for a study. So, for example, first 20 patients who arrive at the clinic are allocated to the new treatment, and then the next 20 patients are allocated to an existing treatment. May problema ba doon? Kasi ganito, yung first 20 patients, malay mo, patients who arrive early may be fitter or wealthier, kaya sila maagang pumunta. O kaya, yung mga doctors, pinapunta kaagad sila kasi mas serious sila. So din magkaroon tuloy tayo ng allocation bias. Di ba? Kaya minsan, titingnan din natin yung situation. Kaya pagka baka magkaroon tayo ng ganitong problema. No? Responder bias. O ito. Pwedeng miss or non-responders. A study may send questionnaires to members of the control group. If these subjects are from a different social class, there may be differences in the proportion of responses that are received. Furthermore, controls who are non-cases may see little point in responding. Pag kunwari ako walang sakit, ba't naman ako sasagot? Pwedeng non-responder siya. No? So, ang tawag doon, responder bias. So, for example, yung mga questionnaires na how many times na nabigyan kayo ng questionnaires? Kumain kayo sa Jollibee, sa tapos merong mga check, kung satisfaction rate. Minsan ayaw mong sumagot. Di ang tawag doon, non-responder. Yun yung problema, di ba? Kasama rin tayo doon sa minsang non-responders, di ba? Okay, information bias. Ano naman to? Systematic differences in data collection, measurement, or classification. So, dyan yung recall bias, social acceptability, recording, interview bias, follow-up bias, misclassification bias. So, ano itong recall bias? People suffering from a disease may have spent more time thinking of possible links between their past behavior and their disease than non-sufferers. Pag meron kang sakit, you overthink. Saan ba ako na-expose kaya ako nagkasakit? Pero pag non-sufferer ka, control ka, hindi mo isipin yan. Talagang magkakaroon ng recall bias. This is common among case control studies. Cases may report more exposure to possible hazards, di ba? Social acceptability bias. Pag tinanong ka, nag-cheating ka na ba ever? No. That's not socially acceptable. So, ang sasagutin mo, never, kahit na nag-cheating ka na. Di ba? So, o kaya, some people may exaggerate or understate their responses. Ang tawag doon, social acceptability bias. Recording bias. Medical records may contain more information on patients who are cases. Pero yung non-cases, konti lang yung records. Yung mga pertinent negative nila, wala dun sa record. That's recording bias. Interviewer bias. Yung interviewer, alam niya kung sino yung control. So the tendency is, magtatanong siya ng magtatanong. Pero alam niya, yung interviewer, kung alam niya cases yun, magtatanong siya ng magtatanong. Pero pag control, alam niya negative to. Hindi siya masyado magtatanong. Interviewer bias. No? Follow-up bias. No? In studies that follow up at intervals, people from certain groups may tend to be lost to follow up. So, ano yun? Wala na. So, very common sa cohort study, saka experimental study. Misclassification. Nagkamali ng classification. May sakit pero nilagay doon sa walang sakit. O kaya, may exposure pero nilagay sa walang exposure. Yun yung tinatawag ng misclassification bias. No? Some groups may give different responses. Like older people, diba? Minsan iba yung responses nila. Investigators may look more closely at exposed patients, more attentive to certain types of subjects. Yan. So, information bias, pwede siyang measurement error, misclassification bias, observation bias. No? This is a flow in measuring exposure or outcome variables that result in incorrect information between comparison groups. Okay, the last one is confounding, pampagulo, no? The mixing of effects between the exposure, the disease, and the third variable, which is the confounder. Ang inaaral talaga ng researcher is the exposure and the disease. Yan yung main concern ng Pero we have to control the confounders. This is the third variable problem. No? Usually, pwede yung i-control by randomization or stratification. So, ang common confounders would be age and sex. No? Ethnicity pwede rin. Okay. It occurs when a separate factor influences the risk of developing a disease other than the risk factor being studied. So, to be a confounder, the factor has to be related to the exposure. And it also has to be independent risk factor for the disease being studied. So remember, the confounding variable is also an independent variable. Pero it is not actually the concern of the researcher. Hindi yan yung talagang real concern ng researcher. Pero it actually acts as an independent risk factor. Okay, so ang common causes ng confounding is age, sex, smoking, ethnicity. No? Kasi nga, mortality is higher in older people. Kaya age is a factor. Men tend to die earlier than women. So sex is a factor. So meron kanya-kanyang culture. Ayan, meron din siyang confounding effect. Okay, so ang confounding is spurious, no? So parang ganito. Okay, pag nag-enter ka ng nagkakataon naman kasi na nagka-acne, di ba? Puberty. Yan. Acne breakouts are common among high school freshmen. Therefore, pag nag-enter ka raw ng high school, nagkakos yan ng acne. Para ma-prevent ng acne, huwag ka na lang pumasok ng high school. So, that's actually a spurious relationship. That's confounding ang pagulo. No? Kaya dapat i-control yan. Okay, so last one, walang study na perfect. Diba? Walang study na perfect. Kaya, ang gagawin mo, pipili ka ng study design na best suited for your particular hypothesis. Ngayon, pag na-pili mo na yun, i-check mo rin kung merong mga unpredictable nature of chance, complexity of bias, saka yung residual confounding. Yung pinaka-konti, yun yung kukunin mo. Kasi wala talagang study na perfect. At best, all known sources of errors are addressed and errors should be minimized. No? So how to minimize that? Do randomization, ensuring samples are randomly selected. You can do matching in case control studies, or analysis, you do stratification. And that's how to control confounders. Okay, and look into the validity. Okay, so that's all about our study designs, including the validity of study designs. Okay. Yan. Wala. Overtime na tayo. 7:06. Okay. So, in our examination, you just have to know what best study design to use in a particular hypothesis. Yun. Tapos, alamin mo yung advantages and disadvantages niya because these are actually part of the board exam question. Karamihan ng mga, parang 30% ng PrepMed questions nandito sa study design. Okay, so example, gusto nyong magkaroon ng review class, pwede rin ha. So, i-set na lang natin yun kung gusto nyong mag-anak. Kasi pwede naman tayo mag-anak kung hindi nyo masyadong mag-gets, naiintindihan yung rates and ratios, demography, and study design. Because the bulk of our exam, medyo heavy kasi ang epidemiology. And these are actually board exam questions and topics. Okay, sige, yun na lang. Okay, see you again during, siguro next week. Okay, sige, bye-bye.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you po.